All right. You guys are so professional. Everything runs right on time. Super excited to be here. Thank you for having me. It's a real honor and pleasure to be here in front of you. I broke a golden rule of mine, which is don't edit the deck the night before. But as I'm at the event, the VIP party last night, people are saying, you know, maybe it's like you play the greatest hits. Like, I don't want to go and see Prince speak or sing and then not hear Purple Rain. So I'm going back into my hotel room thinking, I need to rewrite this whole deck. So I apologize in advance. I was up to 4:30 last night just rocking this thing out just for you guys. But here we go. I met Dustin and the clean energy nuclear team last night, and he told me that I'm going to be speaking on the center stage, the main stage, and that carries a certain responsibility with it. So I hope I don't disappoint you guys. No pressure, right? So the talk itself is titled Rethinking the Role of Graphic Design in the 21st Century. And that's a pretty self-important title, so I thought I would retitle the talk, Dangerous Ideas from a Bald Asian Guy on How to Make It in Design. Now, that title did not pass the focus group, but whatever. That's probably more the truth. So here's the disclaimer in case you guys don't know me or know my own personality. I thought I would just start off with saying this right up front. I'm going to say some things that might be offensive or controversial to some people. And I find that for some reason, by saying this up front, it softens the blow and everybody's okay. So there we are. And I also want to say that I practice a form of speaking, like full contact teaching, speaking. So I encourage you guys to heckle me, to disrupt whatever it is that we're doing. I would rather have a conversation with you guys than sit here and talk at you. But considering how darn polite everybody is here, I'm not sure that you guys will take me up on my offer. There you go. There we go. You know, I noticed like even the homeless people here are polite. I was in the bathroom. I had spilled something on my power adapter. I was just wiping it off and drying it off in the hand dryer. And he looked at me. He's like, hey, what happened? So even the homeless guy wants to know what happened. OK, so here's a conference tip. It's still kind of early on in the conference going here. So I'm going to give you guys a little tip. And the general rule is whether it's this talk or somebody else's talk, you don't have to agree with everything the speaker says to be able to get something of value. And my analogy is this. If you're a prospector and you're panning for gold in a stream, you're not obligated to keep all the rocks. You sift all the junk out, and you keep the gold, shiny stuff. And that's my general tip for you guys, so that in case you don't agree with everything I say, and very few people do, at least you can pull something and hopefully make a positive change for your life. Anyways, I flew in a couple days ago from Los Angeles, from LA, where it's sunny and warm. And if you don't speak Spanish, that's OK. Here's how you pronounce it. It's Los Ang, hell yes. OK? All right, so I just want to take a quick poll. It's very hard for me to see you guys out there. But I'm just curious. I was told there's a lot of people here that are in-house designers. So could you guys show by raise of hands how many of you guys are in-house? OK, that's quite a few guys. All right. And you guys are so on it. The lighting team just turned the lights on for me. That was awesome. Good job, guys. And then how many of you guys would describe yourself as a freelancer? Freelancer. Not that many. OK. Well, I just want to encourage you guys that are calling yourself freelancer, stop doing that. Don't do it. You're more than a temporary employee. And lastly, the business owners in here, independent business owners, OK, so there's a couple of people I noticed who did not raise their hand at all, so I'm missing some kind of category here. Can you yell it a little bit louder? Students. Oh, students. Oh, that's everybody else then. OK, so you'll fit into one of these three categories really soon, right, if all goes well. And typically, I would ask attendees, like, what are your pain points around client work? I tend to speak a lot about how to deal with clients, how to work with them, how to change the client dynamic. And the top answers that I always come back when I ask this question is, clients don't have a clear idea about what they want. You guys feel that? Yeah. And your clients could be your teacher. Your clients could be your boss, your supervisor, anybody that has power over you. Here's another pain point. Clients are indecisive. They change their mind often. You guys get that? I feel your pain. Here's another one. This is a kind of a technical term, late cycle revisions. What that means is an hour before it's due, the client decides this is not going to work, despite having seen it 45 times. the late cycle revisions. And if you've ever had to experience that, it'll make you cringe right now. A little flashback there. And the last one is the clients want to play the role of art director. Everybody's so creative. Everybody knows how to use Photoshop, so it's like they want to tell you what to do, even though you're the trained professional. So if you feel any one of these pain points, it's my hope and my sincerest desire to touch upon these and give you some tools and new ways of thinking so that these things become something that you see in the rearview mirror of your journey towards life. And here's the brief agenda, the 3 main ideas I'm going to be talking about today, kind of in this order. Strategy, love, and stories. And I hope to save some time for you guys to do some Q&A, but I'm not sure if that's going to work out. Let me power through this. Okay, so first off, I want to tell you I'm on a little bit of a crusade here. I want to change the dialogue around what designers do and how they work with clients. And why? Well, it's motivated by my own self-interest here. So the business that I started, managed, and grew in 1995 was no longer relevant. We woke up one day and realized that what we did wasn't desired or what anybody ever really wanted. We made commercials. And in order to survive, we needed to change, which began a multi-year-long process of learning, trial and error, failed client onboarding process. But I'm happy to report to you that we made it. We figured it out. I'm going to share some of what we've learned in the process. Now, we just started this journey a little bit over 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, when client direct projects accounted for less than 1% of the work that we do. Most of the work that we did was for large advertising agencies for some of the biggest brands in the world. So there was a middleman between us and the client. Now, we needed to learn how to work with the clients and do what ad agencies did. And for the longest time, I thought that was in the realm of certain experts that I was not qualified to be a part of. If you guys feel that there are marketers, writers, account directors, all kinds of strategists who get together, writers and researchers who figure all this stuff out. But luck would have it, I bumped into a good friend of mine and reconnected with him 12, 15 years after school. And I was telling him a pain point that I was having. I wanted to do web design because the motion design industry was going to end the way I saw it. And I struggled with doing web design. It had a hard time figuring it out. The principles which I learned in motion design and graphic design didn't apply to web. Luckily, he had spent the last 15 years working just on digital projects. So he shared something with me that I found so valuable, so mind-blowing, that I knew at that point in time, it was an inflection point for us to change the course and the direction of our company. And this was how we're going to make that transition. I will share a little bit of that with you in a bit. So for too long, we focused mostly on what something looked like. When we get an assignment from our client, we're the executors. Now, we're great at craftsmanship. We make some of the most beautiful music videos and commercials that you see out there. But what we wanted to do was to make a difference, an impact on the businesses that we served. We needed to go deeper. Now, traditionally speaking, strategy was the domain of researchers, marketers, writers, as I said before, planners and strategists, while design was the domain of creative people, designers and developers, the makers, if you will. The strategy people told us what to do. And what we wanted to do was to have a seat at the table, at the decision-making process. And in order to get that seat, we needed to become different kinds of people. We needed to be strategic designers. We needed to become bilingual. We needed to speak the language of not only design, but business as well. So here's one thing I'm going to ask you guys to stop doing, is to stop talking in terms of premium, graphic, high fidelity, modern, cool, innovative, fresh, whatever other words you want to use. And start changing the language of what you're speaking about in terms of what the business people care about. ROI, which is an acronym for return on investment. Conversion, lifetime value, the customer lifetime value. Sales funnels, alignment, moving the needle, the user journey or the user experience. Now, most of the problems that we face happen at the beginning. It happens at the inception of the brief. Not that brief, this one. And it's often written by marketers, not by people who actually have to solve the problems. So what we do now today is we write the brief, we align the stakeholders, and we prioritize the goals with the client and not for the client. And it looks something like this. Whereas we used to focus only on the deliverables, we now own the entire creative process, starting with discovery. And in doing discovery, we spend a lot of time learning about who the users are, what their pain points and challenges are, what they're trying to get done at work and at home. And it's using the powers of our empathy that we're able to help our clients understand who ultimately their customers are and how they can serve their customers better. Once we do that, everything seems to fall into place. And then we're able to define with the client the look and the feel, the tone and the voice, and the user benefit. How are you improving the lives of the people that give you money? That's how we begin to develop a brand personality. And lastly, this is where all the touch points, the space in which we used to play in, this is now the last thing that we do. And when you do that all correctly, we're able to integrate strategy, messaging, and design to delight the customer. And delighted customers become loyal customers. You earn the trust of your customer. So here's an idea that I want to throw at you guys right now, that labels do matter. And in order for you to go through the similar transition that we went through, you might need to look at the label that you apply to yourself. How you define yourself matters because it determines what you focus your energies on. So here's where I started in my life and my own journey as a graphic designer. And I think most of you guys here are graphic designers. But in case you're not, and you're saying, Chris, I do more than graphic design, well, I cycle through some of these things. Well, maybe you're a packaging designer, or a print designer, or a user interface designer. Does that hit about most of you guys? A user experience designer? An interior designer, maybe? This is a term I haven't used in a long time, a communication designer. The term that I'm settling on for myself right now is I want to be called a business designer, one who designs businesses. Now, I know it's a dangerous idea. As a recovering graphic designer myself, I know it's sacrilegious and a pretty sure way not to get invited back next year. But maybe we need to rethink the label of graphic design because maybe that doesn't fit us anymore. Maybe that's too limiting. And in case you're still wondering about it, like, what problem does a graphic designer solve? Well, to me, a graphic designer looks to solve graphic problems, and that's the part of the problem. Graphic problems tend to be about aesthetics, like color, shape, tone, typography, or style. That tends to be where most of the dialogue and critique happens online. Can you believe what Google did to their logo? Or 7-Eleven, or Dropbox colors, or the typeface seems a little bit odd. But what you don't understand are the deeper, bigger issues that they're going through, nor were you part of the user strategy discovery sessions where the real insights are gained about where they're trying to move the needle and how they can grow their audience. Here's another dangerous idea. Learn to value making a difference more than making beautiful things. Now, I know what you're thinking, but design and typography is really important. They are, and I still care about those details, but the sequence matters more. What you should strive to do is to try to understand the problem first, have clarity around what the problem is, and then only then proceed to design. Now, a traditional process of how creative flow might work looks something like this, and feel free to play along in your mind. Map this along with your own experience. See how it translates. So typically what happens is a client reaches out in panic. There's never enough time and there's never enough budget. All of a sudden, they woke up one day and realized they need a new fill in the blank, a branding, marketing campaign, they need a new website, a new app, whatever it is that you make, this is what they need. And so they're running around short on time, and they do what most entrepreneurs do. They do the old brain dump. You guys know that term, brain dump? It's like where it just spills out of their mind. And it happens quite often. And I sit there and I say, whoa, you're throwing so much stuff at me. I don't know how to process what it is you're saying. I don't know what to hold on that's important. What's a problem? What's a challenge? Or it's just a crazy idea you had while driving over here, AKA the brain dump. And a lot of you guys that are running your own practice, or maybe you work for one that runs one, typically what you do on a new business inquiry is you follow it up with a questionnaire. A lot of people have questionnaires. Do you guys send out questionnaires to your clients? No, you guys won't admit it. That's fine. Honesty, no, I'm just kidding. Okay. What happens then is that you get answers back that are rushed. They're unclear, and sometimes they're abstract, and sometimes that's a result of the questions that you're asking them. But regardless, you have the questions or the answers that you need, and you start anyways. And when you do what most designers do, you jump on Pinterest, you jump on Behance, and you look for research to get inspiration. Sound about right? That's just another code word for I'm going to rip this off and rip that off. And I have no problem with that, you guys. I promise you I have no problem with that, but let's just call it for what it is. Let's just steal, and that's research and inspiration. And then what you wind up doing is you sketch. The sketches get tighter, and depending on how old you are, the sketch might be digital to begin with. So I just use that term sketch as a rough expression of the idea, even though it's super tight looking. And now, armed with the work, you go to meet the client and you present the work. And your ego, your happiness, your joy, all that stuff is on the line for them to ultimately just tear apart. The client is unsure, they're disappointed, they're underwhelmed. You guys ever get, I'm underwhelmed? You get vague direction because they don't know how to respond to the work. Might as well be an abstract painting. So you go back to the studio, you do more design, you present again, you get even more vague direction. At this point, the client gets really frustrated, so they just say, okay, I want to sit next to you, I want to design this with you. Let's get this thing done. Let's get this thing across the finish line. And you repeat this over and over and over and over again. There's a very popular graphic. It's called The Dark Night of the Soul. Do yourself a favor and go look that thing up, and you'll cry with it in the fetal position. Okay? That's what happens. And so ultimately, the client beats you down, and you just surrender. And the client, you can use, for all your in-house designers out there, you can just use your boss, because the boss doesn't know what it is that they want either. You give up. You finish the work as it's due. You're behind schedule and over budget. Now, if you're running your own company, that sucks, because then it ultimately means you paid for the job yourself. Leads to compromised work. Now, I'm going to ask you guys, does any of that sound familiar to you? Yeah, maybe? Okay. Yeah? It sucks, man. It does. So the problem is when we start with unclear goals, we have unclear results. So part of what I'm going to be talking about today is really about trying to use your voice, your intellect, your skills with language to ascertain what the goals are and to have a higher level conversation with your client or your boss. Because the consequence, if you don't do this, did that animation play? Is that profit and joy disappear. And you become an order taker versus a trusted advisor or consultant, one that the client feels there's no replacement for. And every time I have these conversations online with our fans across the globe, they always feel undermined and undervalued and underpaid. So the solution, okay, so here's that entire process laid out in a linear timeline. I forgot to say this. If you guys want to take pictures of the slides, please feel free to. I know I'm going really fast. I'm mindful of that red timer that's moving. So if this is the process that you go through, and notice like at the end there's an eyeball with a tear coming from the eye, bleeding dollar signs. And that's what happens. Okay, so next time you enter into this phase, what I want you to do is just to stop. Stop the process right there. It begins at the beginning. A flawed brief, a flawed, unclear, fuzzy objective is very difficult to hit. And every once in a while, you might hit it, and you might mistake good fortune with a good plan. That's what my business coach would tell me all the time. Just because you're lucky doesn't mean that you figured it out. So here's another dangerous idea. Let's not send the clients questionnaires. Let's not make them fill out forms or tables on your website. Let's just have a real dialogue with the client and not be afraid of what they have to say. Because questionnaires put the burden of work on the client. It also negates your ability to demonstrate your expertise, for you to be able to listen to nuance and guide your clients through a process that's actually very difficult. Now, the root of all this stuff happens in this thing that we often refer to as the gut, what Simon Sinek refers to as the limbic brain. It doesn't have language, but it is the key driver to the decisions that we're making. It's not until it gets into the neocortex, where we have language and data and those kinds of things, to codify those gut feelings. So what you want to be able to do is you want to translate feelings into words, ideas into goals, features into benefits, and stories into insights. How do you do that? You ask a series of clarifying questions. And what you want to do is to narrow the variance corridor. You want to eliminate all the possibilities into a singular thing. And what Blair Enns talks about is when you do the presentation, instead of saying, ta-da, here it is, surprise, it's more of an of course moment. Of course it had to be that, because this is what we all talked about, this is what we all agreed upon. So there's a couple of things that you need to know. Two things, really. Checklists and parameters. So it's a combination of both. Sometimes if you go too far in one or the other, you get bad information. So checklists look something like this. These tend to be very binary in nature. There are often mandates that are non-negotiable by the client, like the deadline, the format, how many colors, the printing budget, etc. But it's not always clear what is non-negotiable. So it's very important for you to ask right up front. And I would even ask that. What's non-negotiable? What is a mandate? What are sacred cows? So sometimes you think, oh, we need to follow the language of the existing campaign that you've done for the last 10 years, when in fact, they're calling you because this is the time that they want to change that. So don't make that assumption. Next up is parameters. Now, parameters are more open-ended, but they do kind of bracket the area of discovery. And so a combination of parameters and checklists really help you to have a clear idea of what it is that you're trying to solve. Parameters could be something like, it evokes a feeling of celebration. This is for, say, Hennessy or something, the liquor. It's about family. We want to tell our brand story and use our color palette. We want to have a more inclusive voice that is more contemporary with what's going on with culture and society. Now, every once in a while, when you're doing this parameter thing, you will hear conflicting, contradictory ideas like epic and intimate, words that were uttered in the same breath from a client of mine. Chris, we want it to be epic yet intimate. Okay. And so here's a tool that I use, and you guys feel free to use this kind of tool, where we bracket at both ends polar opposing ideas. And then we ask the client, I've heard something that I can't resolve in my mind. Where are we on the epic versus the intimate spectrum? Oh, and then it causes them to kind of rethink the words they chose, the ones that they might have thrown out a little carelessly, then to refine that. And you can help them. You can say, oh, okay, hold on. Maybe there was a video or a print ad that I saw or a piece of design that actually straddled this, and is it more like that? And then you get buy-in there, and that's really important. Here's a couple of key business ideas I want to share with you guys. And if you want to talk to me afterwards, I'll tell you where I get all my ideas or where I steal all of my ideas, okay? So here's another idea. It's called retreat and follow. Do you guys know this concept, retreat and follow? Mr. Blair Enns, win without pitching. It's a very simple concept. And if you look at nature, things that run after you tend to scare you and you run away. So he says, like, in our desire to get new work, to please the client, we tend to be very aggressive in pursuing them. What it makes us do is it gives us what they call happy ears. We hear what we want to hear. So even when it's not a good fit, even when the schedule, the budget, and the scope isn't a good fit for you, you still pursue it. So you wind up doing bids, proposals, or worse yet, unpaid pitches for work that was never going to come your way. So practice instead a different concept, the concept of retreat and follow. By pulling back from the client, by qualifying the client, by trying to kill the engagement 3 times within the first 10 minutes, you're checking their level of engagement with you. So if you say something to your client, I'm glad you called me. Before we spend more time, I'm not sure you can afford me. That would be retreating number 1. And you go and repeat that process again and again. And if they're interested, they will follow you in. That's an important business concept, a sales and marketing strategy that you guys can use. You guys okay so far? All right. Man, it's like we're playing poker or something. I'm looking at you guys like, man, Canadians, they just give you nothing. They're very stoic, polite and stoic. That's what I got. Okay, you guys are allowed to say weird, funny things, okay? All right, here's another dangerous idea from Bold Guy. Talk about money early. Now, a lot of us think, yeah, I don't want to talk about money. It's so crass. You ruin the art. You ruin my creative soul, my integrity. So we don't talk about money. And then we go away into our caves and we go and design proposals and things of that nature. And it turns out nobody wants to approve it. And then you get really frustrated. Why? Because you're way over budget to begin with. So what we want to do is we want to talk about money early and we want to talk about it often. It's a business transaction, one in which both parties must see higher value in what they're giving, in what they're receiving than what they paid. You guys understand that? A client gives you money because they value what you create more than the money itself. And you agree to take on the money because you value the money. You got to pay rent, buy baby formula and diapers. And you think what you do is really easy. That's great. So what we need to do is talk about money. We have to get comfortable talking about money. So there's a couple of tips I want to share with you guys. One is the concept of price bracketing. It's very difficult to ascertain from the client what their budget is. Yeah, you guys have felt this before? When you ask the client, what do you have to spend? What is your budget? If you're brave enough to even ask that on the first call. They might say, I don't know, you're the expert, you tell me. You tell me. So here's what you do. You take whatever number you think you need to charge, and there's formulas on how to figure out this number, and then you double it. And what you do is you price bracket it. So if you were thinking $5,000, asking the client for $5,000 to do whatever it is you do, you say it's between $5,000 and $10,000. And the reason why is it's tapping into a fundamental human concept called the law of contrast. Dr. Robert Cialdini talks about in his book, Influence, something about persuasion. He says the law of contrast. Absent context, everything can be expensive or cheap. A $10,000 car is expensive, but next to a $120,000 Tesla, it's actually quite affordable. So when you do this simple concept of price bracketing, when you bookend something at $5,000 to $10,000, you make the 5 seem a lot more palatable just because the 10 exists. If you were just to come out and say it's $5,000, the client, being a shrewd business person, instinctively would negotiate you down. And you, being the not shrewd business person, would instinctively accept whatever they give you. That's the key difference. So just practice that. Now, you guys, here's the thing that I said earlier today, which is you don't need to understand the concept. You don't even need to like me. I don't care if you like me. Is just take what works. And I'm telling you right now, there are kids all over the world, because we have a global audience, who write back to me and message me. I can't believe it. I went and asked for double what I normally do, and I was bracing for impact. Like, they're in the crash position. I was bracing for impact, and guess what? The clients said yes. And I can't believe that crap that you say actually works. I say, thank you. I expect a check for 10%. So I talk about money early and often, see? Okay. All right, here's another dangerous idea. I know this sounds totally counterintuitive. What the heck are you talking about? Charge more if you want better clients. Does that sound weird? Well, first of all, I don't like cheap clients. I don't like them. If you like them, you can have mine, okay? Here's the interesting thing that I've discovered. Clients that pay more value their time more. Not your time, they value their time more. It's a key concept here. Successful entrepreneurs don't have time to be dorking around telling you what typeface to use. They don't have time to be pixel effing your design. They don't. They have to run a business. They have to make money. They got employees to fire. They got other things to do. So usually what I say when a client's pushing back on money with me, and sometimes they do, I'll just say, that's fine. I understand you want to save money. We're not the right company for you. What you'll wind up doing is you'll hire some of our competitors. I'll be happy to give you their phone number. But what will happen is you will sit there and you will babysit them through the whole process. You must like to become an art director. You're actually more creative than you think. When you hire us, you pay us so that you can go to sleep at night and have a sound night's sleep. You don't have to stay awake because this is what we do. And for that, it will cost you money because your time is valuable. That's when they usually say, okay, fine. Okay? All right. So charging more allows you to do something because I know I can say it, and a lot of people are like, I still don't like that. It's just still a little uncomfortable to charge more. I feel wrong. Like, how can I justify this cost? It's just too much. It's unethical. Believe it or not, these are things that people write back to me all the time. All you have to do is look at the thread. I love the trolls. I love them. Okay. Now, most creative people will say, well, I always want to provide my client better service. I always want to do the best work possible, use the most premium printing process, or I want to hire the best people from all over the world to work on my project, but I can't because I can't afford it. I have to do 2 jobs just to pay for this job. This doesn't even make sense. So if you want to give your clients better service and do better work, just charge more. How do you know you're charging more or charging enough? You have to pass the phone test. Okay, so when the client rings you on your phone, how do you feel? You feel like, oh, I can't believe it called me. It's Sunday. And you pick up the phone and you smile like, oh my gosh, you like what's going on? Yeah? Okay. That's the phone test. That means they paid you enough. I promise you, work only sucks because you were not paid enough. My clients pay us a lot of money. I'm happy to pick up the phone. And here's the weird thing. People that pay you a lot of money, they want to pay you even more money. It's really weird. It's contagious. And I like that because I'm happy to accept their money. Okay? All right. Now, your relationship with money, here's what I want you to do. I typically have $1 here. I'm trying to be contextually sensitive here, right? Think of these as individual thank you notes. That's how clients appreciate you. That's the kind of appreciation I want. They must like me a lot. They gave me a lot of these, okay? Even with the exchange rate. All right. All right, here we go. Ooh, 12 minutes, 35 seconds. Okay, poll. How many people love their clients? Raise your hand. How many people love? Okay, all right. All right. Okay, I just saw a few. It's dark. I just saw a few hands go up, okay? That's not a lot. It's not a lot. But the more important question is, how many people have clients that love them? I'm not talking about kind of like you, kind of not appreciate you, not infatuated with you, but love you. Like even fewer hands now. Okay. All right. Have you ever had a client call you and say something like this? You should charge us more. You know what, Chris? I really appreciate the work you've done. I've issued you more shares of our company. Anybody? See, those are the clients I like to pick up the phone. Oh, good for you. She's buying lunch. Okay. All right. Now, would you guys agree with me that love should be reciprocal? Yeah? And since you can't make anybody, especially your client, fall in love with you, you have to start. And you should love them. It does seem reasonable, doesn't it? That they pay you to do something you love that you would do in your own free time for no money at all? All right, so what I'm talking about is love here. But love can be an abstract concept. Okay, so for the men in the audience, let me put it another way. Okay, love is A times U divided by ME. That's love. Okay, what love, and I did a little work in relationship therapy here. Love really means two things: appreciate me and understand me. Ladies, am I right? See you guys, I don't know what I'm talking about. Appreciate me. Thank you, honey. And wow, you did have a hard day today. I understand you. Okay. So how should you respond to your next business inquiry when the clients call you? Anybody here or like a web designer or something like that? Yeah? Okay. So if I'm a prospective client and I call you and I say, hi, Mary, I need to redo my site, and I hear you're the person to talk to. I don't know if your name's Mary, I just made that up. How do you respond? How do you respond? Young lady in the front? Yeah, I'm pointing right at you. How do you respond? How much are you willing to pay me? Okay, she's going right to the money. Wow. That is like hashtag art prostitute right there. Okay. Okay. So, typically, you talk about scope, right? Before you say how much you're willing, it's like, talk to me first, Wine and dine a girl first, right? Scope, and then you might get into pricing, and then you send in a bid. That seems pretty typical, right? You got to scope the project. You got to figure out the price, talk about the money, and then you send in a bid. That seems reasonable. Well, no, it's not. Here's the alternative approach. First, applying the principles of love, appreciate the client. So here's what we do. First, thank the client and say, I really appreciate you calling me. I do. Then respond by saying, I'm curious, what is driving this initiative? What's motivating you to redo your site? Why do you think you even need a new website? Do you guys understand that? So we're going to stop them, because this is also part of the retreat and follow concept. Just because you call me and you think I need your money, and I do, I don't act that way. I don't behave that way. I want to change the power dynamic. So here's another dangerous idea. Selling, which a lot of people don't like, is not convincing. It's not persuading. It's not cajoling. Selling is being curious. So by asking these kinds of questions, you're showing both appreciation, the desire to understand. You're asking the client to take a moment to share a bigger problem with you versus prescribing a solution to you. When they come and say, I need a website, they're saying, I've already figured out all the problems. A website is the answer to my problem. That puts you back into the role of being an order taker, which you don't want to be. You are also telling them that you're interested in solving more problems than just graphic problems. And this is the difference between being an amateur and an expert. Amateurs give advice. And advice is in the form of, your site needs to look like this and use this typeface because it needs to be responsive. What experts do is they diagnose. They spend more time learning to get to know you. Love. So you need to learn to ask better questions. I got to power through this now, you guys. Oh my gosh. Okay, 3 golden questions. Just screen capture this. 3 golden questions. I find that this generally works on us, every single client that comes across our desk. What are you trying to accomplish? Like, what are your goals? What's your objective? What's the big thing you're trying to do right now? Let me start there. So sometimes when they say, I want a website, that's not what they're trying to accomplish. It's because sales are down, conversion is off, the signups are down, those kinds of things. 2, what's getting in the way of you achieving this goal? You're asking the client to tell you what they think the problem is. This is also a great way to engage your client. 3, why do you believe this to be true? Now, you guys are all familiar with Maslow's pyramid, right? At the top, which is the highest, is self-actualization. At the bottom is physiological needs. And if you want to be paid more, if you want to be more valuable, you actually help the client to realize something about themselves. This is what therapists do. This is what coaches do. This is what experts do. So here's a little animation, right? So at the very bottom is logo design. And as you rise above, it's like your identity design. Well, now you tell me how to speak, talk, look, and behave. You influence my behavior and action. Well, that's branding. That's even more valuable. But the very, very tippy top are management consultants. Anybody here a management consultant? They make so much money, you guys, you lucky dogs. They went to school. Instead of going to art school, they went to like real school. Ooh, my God, I know the kind of money you guys are making. Talk to me later. Okay. So when you help your clients realize a higher truth, something they didn't even know, feelings of affection tend to surface. When I do discovering strategy with my clients, I usually get a hug from them if I'm doing it right. And I don't even like hugs. Okay. So here's some key ideas. Bullet point: slow down, get to know me before you try to close. Mary, or whatever your real name is, slow down. Stay in the diagnostic phase for as long as possible. Amateurs prescribe, experts diagnose. Show up empty. Do not have an agenda. Be open to more than just graphic problems. Am I starting to make my case here about the term graphic designer? Okay. Selling is being curious. So we can all be better salespeople if we just learn to ask more questions. And asking why 3 times tends to annoy the client, but it tends to get at the root of what they're trying to do. Okay, this is the last arc here, you guys. I might make this. Tell your story. So how many of you have heard or even said the work should speak for itself? Yeah, I'm guilty of this. The work should speak for itself. That's why I don't want to talk about it. That's why I went to art school, man. Okay, that's what I was taught in design school. But when it comes to marketing, especially in the 21st century, the work cannot speak for itself anymore. Okay, work, absent story, and context is undifferentiated, for which there are many inexpensive competitors for. Undifferentiated products and services compete on price. So if the price isn't right, you just move on. So when you present your work, you soon-to-be graduates entering into the workforce, when you present your work online, what story are you attaching with the work? And I want to prove it to you, okay? All right, this is a cup of water. It's the most plentiful natural resource on Earth. It's the basic building block of life, and it is literally free, especially here because it rains. Okay, it is free. Yet there's such a large price discrepancy for bottled water. Do you guys ever wonder why? Why do some bottles of water cost more per gallon than gasoline? Why? Fancy packaging. Somebody says brand. I get it. Okay. It's because they tell a story. I try to make this easy, you know? Started with story and then the answer is a story. Okay, it's a story. So each bottle of water tells a different story and carries an appropriate price tag depending on how it makes you feel. You as the consumer join a tribe of other consumers who drink Evian or Voss or Smart Water. Yeah, I'm not stupid. I want to drink Smart Water. Okay? So here's a bunch of bottles of water. If you drink Crystal Geyser, or whatever the equivalent here is, Pure Life, it might say, I'm thirsty and I'm thrifty. Or it might say, I'm not going to buy into all that marketing crap. It's just water, man. Okay, if you drink Fiji, it might say, I really, really, really need a vacation. And I have OCD, because this is artesian water. Let me raise my pinky. This is artesian water, untouched by man. That's what they say. And here's another one for you. Or if you drink Ethos, available at Starbucks, it says, I'm conscious, man. I'm affluent because I'm buying water not just for myself, I'm buying for all the poor kids around the world. It's very expensive, Ethos water. And then there's you. If you present work without including your story, you're just water. Now notice when they serve water at the table at a restaurant, they uncork or uncap it right in front of you. Because if they said that that was Evian, they just gave you a glass, you would not pay for that. This is the power of story and how you present yourself. So what you've got to do, what you have to do, is you have to tell your story. You can't be this guy or gal. So how do you do that? How do you do that? Ooh, 1 minute. I could do this. 1 minute. Okay. This is a personal branding worksheet. You guys can go on our website and download it at thefuture.com, okay? I'm going to go over it real quick. You may want to take screen captures because oftentimes you'll forget this conversation and you won't look for it. It's free, 100% free, I promise you, I think. There's just 4 questions that you need to know. So this is a personal branding worksheet that I put together. Okay? It's the less corporate version of what I do for clients. So who, what, how, and why. It's really simple. So first off, you just answer, who do you serve? Describe the communities, organizations, and tribes you serve. And you just list as many as you want. Go bananas. Don't limit yourself. Don't edit. And then what you need to do is pick the top 3 and narrow the top 3 down to 1. Okay. What do you do? Describe what you do to help others. And again, repeat the process. Pick the top 3. Now, if you're stuck and you can't fill this thing out really fast, that's totally okay. Ask your best friend, somebody you're dating, somebody who knows you really well to help you do this process, okay? Number 3, how. Describe in tangible terms how you're able to help others. Again, pick the top 3. And the last one that you have to answer is this why. And this is the hardest one. Why do you do this? Describe the emotional, intangible benefits you create for others. The light's flashing. I get it. I'm almost done. Okay. And here's the formula in which you use. Okay? It looks really, really simple. I help. And then there's these words to, by, and that. Okay? And the first one is who. I help who. Who do you help? What it is that you do. How you make them feel. And the why, the emotional impact that you create. It's a really, really simple framework. And I'm going to show you because I reverse engineered one from a really large company called Siegel Vision. You guys have heard of Siegel Vision? Siegel Gale? Okay, Siegel Vision. This is straight up from their website. I just kind of fit it in here. I help purpose-driven organizations to achieve clarity of identity, clarity of expression, and clarity of experience by delivering clear, I like that word clear, hard-hitting solutions that inspire action and drive impact. That's pretty good. Here's my last slide. Key ideas. Okay, you guys ready? Inform versus inspire. Oh, forget that. Forget it. That's it. That's all I got, you guys. Thank you very much. Okay.